She was drenched and trembling, a mother, a soldier, a memory on four legs knocking at the door of a boy too young to understand war. But 5-year-old Ollie heard her, through the thunder, through the dark, and when he opened that door, he didn't just let in a stray, he let in a final mission, a buried truth, and a guardian willing to bleed for someone else's child. What came next uncovered a government secret, a name long erased, and a loyalty that outlived orders. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you believe no hero should be forgotten, hit that subscribe button. This story will break you, then stitch your heart back together. The storm rolled in over Evergreen Ridge like a furious tide. Thunder cracked through the sky like bones snapping in the cold, and sheets of rain battered the rooftops with merciless force. Trees swayed under violent gusts, and the old street lamps lining Hawthorne Drive flickered as if they too feared the night. Inside a modest 2-story brick house at the edge of the neighborhood, 5-year-old Ollie Cunningham stirred under the weight of a strange sound. It wasn't the wind, nor the rhythmic pattering of rain on his window. It was sharp, pleading, scratching, and a low, trembling bark. Ollie was small for his age, with a shock of unruly chestnut curls and a curious, soft-hearted nature that made him love every creature he met. He blinked sleepily, sitting up in bed, his dinosaur pajamas bunched at the knees. The sound came again, scratching at the front door. He knew the difference between wind and intention. This was intention. He climbed out of bed, his bare feet padding silently on the wooden floors. As he tiptoed down the stairs, the flicker of lightning illuminated the hallway. The scratching had become more frantic, almost desperate. When Ollie reached the door, he pressed his small hand against the frosted glass and squinted. Nothing but the blur of rain, until another flash of lightning lit up the porch. That was when he saw her. A German shepherd, soaked, trembling, and gaunt, stood hunched against the doorframe, her coat heavy with water and mud. Her eyes glowed amber in the light, and they locked on Ollie's with an intelligence far too human for comfort. Huddled behind her were 3 tiny bundles, barely more than a few weeks old. The puppies pressed into her legs, their fur clumped with moisture, their heads lowered against the storm. Ollie gasped and immediately turned, running toward the kitchen. "Mom! Dad! There's a dog! She's got babies! They're cold!" Ben Cunningham was already up, standing at the kitchen sink in his pajama pants and t-shirt, a half-drained glass of water in his hand. A tall man in his early 40s, Ben had broad shoulders, a square jaw, and the calm demeanor of someone who fixed problems for a living, mostly in the form of cybersecurity systems. He raised an eyebrow at the urgency in his son's voice. "What are you talking about, buddy?" he asked, setting the glass down. Leah Cunningham appeared next, a robe cinched around her waist, her dark hair twisted up in a loose bun. She was in her late 30s, with kind, intelligent eyes and a perpetual look of fatigue, a woman still quietly recovering from an emotional injury no one could see. A year ago, she had been a well-loved veterinarian in the neighboring city until a failed emergency surgery left her patient, a rescued Labrador named Juno, dead on her operating table. She hadn't practiced since. "She's outside, Mom!" Ollie cried, pulling her hand urgently. "She has puppies! They're getting rained on!" Leah hesitated. "Ollie, sweetie, are you sure? It's probably just—" But Ollie was already unlocking the door. Before either parent could stop him, he yanked the door open, and a gust of rain slammed into the hallway like a wall of cold breath. The dog didn't move. She stood there, motionless but alert, her ears twitching, her body angled just enough to shield the trembling pups behind her. One of the puppies let out a feeble whine. Leah froze. Ben stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the dog and his son. "Easy, easy now," he murmured. "She's not going to hurt us," Ollie said with childlike certainty. "She's asking for help." Leah took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. The dog's ribs were visible beneath her thick, wet coat. Her back legs seemed stiff, injured. But her eyes were not wild. They were watchful, intelligent. She wasn't running from the storm. She had come here. "She's been trained," Leah whispered, mostly to herself. Ben turned to her. "You think? She's not straying. Look at her stance. She's protecting her pups, not herself." Leah crouched slightly, keeping her hands visible. "Hey, girl, you okay?" The dog let out a soft sound, half whine, half exhale, and took one tentative step forward. "Ben," Leah said, her voice gentle but firm. "Let them in." He hesitated, casting a glance toward the rain. "Are you sure?" Leah looked at her son, still clutching her sleeve, his face a portrait of silent hope, then at the dog, soaked and limping, refusing to abandon her young. "Yes, but just the mudroom," she said. "I'll grab towels." Ben held the door as the German Shepherd carefully guided her 3 pups inside. Their paws tapped lightly on the wood floor, their legs wobbly and unsure. Leah reappeared moments later with old blankets and towels, spreading them over the mudroom floor. The puppies collapsed into the warmth, their tiny bodies shivering against the fabric. The mother settled beside them, keeping her eyes on every human movement in the room. "What should we call her?" Ollie asked, sitting cross-legged just out of reach. Leah paused. "Let's not get too attached." "We're already attached," Ben cut in, nodding at the way the dog's gaze followed Ollie with unwavering trust. "She needs a name," Ollie insisted. Leah smiled faintly. She hadn't smiled like that in months. "Rhea," she said, surprising herself. "Like the Greek goddess, mother of gods." Ollie grinned. "Rhea," he echoed. The name settled in the room like a breath finally exhaled. Across the street, headlights flickered as a moving van idled in front of a modest gray house. A woman stepped out. Slender, mid-20s, with chestnut hair tucked beneath a beanie. She was soaked through but didn't seem to notice as she surveyed her new neighborhood. Her name was Avery Stray, a freelance investigative journalist with the face of someone who had learned too early how the world could break you, and the heart of someone still willing to chase truth anyway. She'd moved to Evergreen Ridge with no fanfare, carrying only boxes of notebooks and a worn photo of her uncle, Callum Stray, a decorated military dog trainer who had vanished without a trace last spring. Avery stared across the street as thunder cracked overhead. Her eyes narrowed on the house with the glowing porch light, where a shadow, 4-legged and massive, stood just inside the doorway. Her breath caught. She whispered one name, "Rhea." The storm raged on, but inside the Cunningham house, warmth bloomed. Ben stood beside Leah, who now knelt drying the smallest pup. Ollie leaned close to Rhea, whispering something only she could hear. And Rhea. Rhea closed her eyes for the first time that night. Outside, the wind howled, but it no longer felt like fear. It felt like something was beginning. Morning arrived with a hush. The rain had tapered into a quiet drizzle, and the clouds hung low over Evergreen Ridge like a gray woolen blanket. Inside the Cunningham household, the air smelled of brewed coffee, wet fur, and something unspoken, something sacred, like the first breath after rescue. In the mudroom, wrapped in old towels and fleece throws, lay the little family of dogs. The 3 puppies were still asleep, nestled in a corner like a trio of breathing pebbles. Their fur, though cleaner than the night before, still clung in damp tufts. One of them, a bold, wiry-legged male with a splash of white on his nose, had his head draped across his sibling's belly. "Comet," Ollie whispered, crouching beside them, his small hands gently hovering above their tiny chests, as if not to wake them with his awe. "He's Comet, and that one's Maple, and she," he pointed at the runt of the litter, "she's Scout." Leah smiled faintly as she leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, hair still damp from her shower. She wore a worn hoodie with faded veterinary clinic lettering across the back. Her fingers curled slightly as if resisting the urge to reach out and touch, like a pianist who had once played a melody too painful to revisit. It had been nearly a year since she had last examined a patient, but her instincts stirred now like old muscles flexing. Rhea was sitting upright in the center of the room, legs folded neatly beneath her, alert despite exhaustion. Her coat was thick, but the storm had soaked it so thoroughly that her fur clung to her ribs and shoulders, exposing the harsh outlines of a frame gone too long without rest. Her eyes followed every movement, not with suspicion, but caution born of hard-earned experience. She was not afraid of humans. She was reading them. Leah knelt beside her. "Let's take a proper look at you, girl," she said softly. "You let me touch you last night. Let's see if you'll let me again." She reached out with slow, deliberate fingers. Rhea didn't flinch. She allowed the touch, even leaned into it, her breathing steady, if a bit shallow. Leah's hands moved gently along the dog's side, through her soaked fur and down to the right shoulder. That's when Leah felt it. A tear, a wound, crusted over but red at the edges. Infected. Leah parted the fur carefully and hissed under her breath. "It's not fresh, but it's dirty," she muttered. Ben appeared behind her, tall frame silhouetted by the doorway light. "Bad?" Leah nodded. "She's been through something, possibly a fight, or tangled with barbed wire, but it looks deliberate." "Deliberate?" "Like a knife." Leah's eyes flicked up. "Or a trained dogfight. She's been somewhere she shouldn't have been, and she made it out." Ben stepped inside and crouched beside her. He was an analytical man, not quick to assume, but methodical in how he processed everything. Like code. "She was trained, right? Look at the way she guards the pups, the way she doesn't bark unless she needs to. It's too controlled." Leah looked into Ria's eyes again. "Yeah, she's not just any stray." Just then, the back door creaked open with a cold gust. Ben stood up instinctively. "Sorry!" Avery Stray's voice came from just outside. She stepped in, clutching a large umbrella and wearing a rain-soaked wool coat that looked like it had seen too many cities and too few dry cleaners. Her boots were muddy, and she was holding a brown bag with Finley's Feed and Pet Supply printed on it in faded ink. "I brought some kibble and canned food," she said quickly. "Hope it's okay I just dropped by." Avery was striking in a quiet way. Medium height, sharp features, and a slightly tired look that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from the weight of carrying too many unanswered questions. She was only 26, but the disappearance of her uncle, Callum Stray, had aged her in subtler, sadder ways. She had that posture of someone constantly halfway between staying and leaving. Ben glanced at Leah, who shrugged faintly. "Come in," Ben said. "You didn't have to." "I know," Avery replied, stepping carefully past the threshold. "But I wanted to. I saw her last night. Through the rain. I thought I recognized her. That dog, Rhea. She looks like one I saw in a photo with my uncle years ago." Leah frowned. "Your uncle?" Avery set the bag down and pulled a folded photograph from her jacket pocket. It was damp at the edges, but intact. It showed a man in military fatigues crouching beside a younger Rhea. Then, just a leaner, sharper-featured dog with bright, intelligent eyes and a jet-black nose. "My uncle, Callum Stray," Avery said quietly. "He was a military dog trainer, disappeared 6 months ago. No one looked too hard, just another veteran who went off-grid, they said." Ben took the photo, examining the man's face. Strong jaw, close-cropped beard, sun-worn skin. There was warmth in the way he looked at the dog. Not just ownership, partnership. "Rhea looks older now," Avery added, eyes on the German shepherd, "but it's her. I'd bet my life." Leah stared at Rhea, who was watching Avery as if she recognized the scent of old memories. "You think she came here for a reason?" "I know she did," Avery replied. "She doesn't just show up. She was trained for missions, precision tracking, search and response. She's trying to finish something." Ben turned toward the hallway and walked to his desk, where a small monitor displayed their home security system. He tapped the keyboard. The back camera feed showed only static. "That's weird," he muttered. "Last night, the rear cameras cut out. I thought it was the storm, but the front ones kept running." He clicked again. The timestamp showed clear footage from 2:07 a.m. to present, except for the rear feeds. They had gone black at 1:48 a.m. and hadn't returned until sunrise. "That's not storm interference," he said, frowning. "That's manual override. Someone disabled it." Leah stood slowly, her eyes narrowing. "So, either someone didn't want to be seen, or wanted to check if they'd been followed." Avery said nothing. She was staring at Rhea, whose ears had pricked forward. The dog stood, her body tense. Ben followed her gaze toward the back door, where a shadow passed quickly across the frosted glass. Gone in an instant. He moved quickly to the door, opened it wide. No one was there. Just trees and mist, and the receding trace of footsteps in the wet grass. Ben closed the door and locked it. "They know she's here," he said. Avery's voice was low but steady. "Then we don't have much time." In the mudroom, Comet whimpered in his sleep, curling tighter into Maple's fur. Scout sneezed once and burrowed deeper into the blanket, and Rhea, still limping slightly, returned to her spot beside them, never once taking her eyes off the door. Night in Evergreen Ridge had always been uneventful. Quiet streets, the occasional hoot of an owl, porch lights glowing softly like sentinels of suburban normalcy. But not tonight. Not since Rhea arrived. She hadn't slept. Rhea sat at the wide bay window in the living room, her large body still, regal, and alert. Her ears tilted toward every creak, her eyes locked beyond the glass, watching the street with an unblinking stare. The faint light from a table lamp gleamed off her fur, revealing the healed but raw scar on her shoulder. Her breaths were slow and controlled, as though counting time. Ollie had made a little bed near the window, a fortress of pillows and fleece blankets, insisting on sleeping near her. He lay curled under a blanket with dinosaurs on it, one arm draped across a stuffed bear named Theo, the other resting near Rhea's paw. He wasn't scared, not yet, but even he could feel something different in the air. Rhea didn't move for hours, not even when Ben passed behind her with a fresh cup of coffee, not even when Leah padded softly down the stairs to check on Ollie. It was almost midnight when it happened. The low rumble of an engine, subtle, almost respectful, broke through the silence. Rhea's ears lifted instantly. She stood, tail stiff, nose pressed to the glass. Ollie stirred and sat up sleepily. "What is it?" he mumbled. Rhea didn't bark, but her posture sharpened like a coiled spring. Her eyes locked onto a dark shape at the curb, a black SUV, windows tinted, idling with its lights off. Ben, in sweatpants and an old university sweatshirt, came to the window. "I don't like that." Leah appeared behind him. She held Ollie's hand instinctively, her eyes narrowing as the car remained still. Then, just as silently as it had come, the SUV pulled away, headlights still off, tires whispering over the wet pavement. Ben checked the security monitor again. "Rear cam's still fine. I'll review the footage in the morning." Leah's voice was tight. That's what people do when they're casing a house. Rhea turned, walked to the back door, and growled low. Not loud, but deliberate. Her eyes focused past the curtains toward the backyard, ears twitching with intent. Ben flipped the porch light on. Nothing but a wet lawn and a barely swaying maple tree. Still, Rhea stood guard, tail rigid. That night, no one really slept. Around 2 a.m., a motion alert pinged on Ben's phone. He sat upright, checked the feed. A figure, tall, hooded, was walking slowly along the fence line, not approaching the house, but circling it, testing visibility. The person stopped at the back gate, looked toward the security camera, then vanished into the trees. Leah called the police. They arrived 15 minutes later. 2 officers, one young and fresh-faced, the other in his 50s, weary-eyed and unimpressed. Officer Gregsons, the senior of the two, tall with a paunch and thinning hair, listened as Ben replayed the footage. "You want my honest take?" he said. "Could be nothing. Could be someone walking a dog and getting lost in the fog." "No one walks a dog at 2 in the morning in a hood, without a flashlight and without a dog," Ben replied dryly. The officer gave a shrug. "We'll file the report. Just keep your doors locked." As they left, Rhea sat by the door, unmoving, watching the red-blue lights fade down the street. Leah wrapped a blanket tighter around Ollie. "We can't just ignore this." "I won't," Ben murmured. "Not again." And meanwhile, a few houses down, Avery stood in the shadows between 2 garages, watching the patrol car disappear. She hadn't slept either. Instead, she'd spent the evening doing what she did best, asking questions where people didn't want them asked. Earlier that day, she had knocked on the faded wooden door of 1727 Hawthorne, home of Marcus Dean, a man whose name had surfaced more than once in obscure forums and whistleblower boards tied to Sentinel Black. Marcus had answered slowly, with one eye squinting through the chain-locked crack. He was in his late 50s, lean and sharp-edged, the kind of man who looked like he didn't blink unless it served a purpose. His beard was gray and patchy, his eyes sunken but alert. His arms were still muscular, though scarred. One long, pale burn ran from his elbow to his wrist. "You're Avery Stray," he said, not asked. "You were Sentinel," she replied, stepping closer. He gave a dry chuckle. "Was. Long ago. Most of us don't last." They talked inside. His house was sparse. No photos, just weapons manuals, dog training books, and a locked gun cabinet in the corner. A single German Shepherd print hung on the wall, an old campaign poster. Avery laid the photo of Rhea and Callum on his kitchen table. He stared at it for a long time. "You think she's the one from the file, Rhea Shadow?" "I know she is." He sat back. Then if she came here, it wasn't an accident. She found the Cunninghams. Marcus rubbed his jaw. If that dog showed up there, she's not lost. She's warning them. Or worse, protecting something. Avery leaned in. Protecting what? Marcus's eyes went cold. You don't know what Sentinel turned into after Callum left. It stopped being about defense, became something else. Surveillance for hire, private ops, black site training, and those who didn't fit, like Callum, they disappeared. He stood up and walked to his fridge, pulled out an old tin, popped the lid, and retrieved a folded page, yellowed with age. This was Callum's last note to me, he said. Didn't say much, but the last line stuck with me. If she comes to you, you're already the second choice. If she picks someone else, protect them with everything. Avery stared. You think the family's in danger? Marcus nodded slowly. If Rhea picked their home, it might be the only safe ground she has left. Back at the Cunningham house, Ollie finally dozed off beside Rhea again. Leah sat silently on the couch, stroking Rhea's ears, eyes unfocused. Ben reviewed footage frame by frame. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and at the end of the block, a black SUV sat idling again. Engine running, lights off, its driver watching, waiting. The morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds in soft golden stripes, warming the hardwood floor and illuminating motes of dust dancing lazily in the air. Outside, the rain had paused, but the sky remained heavy, as though the storm had only stepped aside for breath. Inside the Cunningham home, Ollie was building a fort, or, as he called it, a mission command base. Pillows, cardboard boxes, and plastic toy walkie-talkies were scattered across the hallway near the storage room at the back of the house. Rhea lay beside him, tail thumping occasionally, as she watched him with quiet attentiveness. Her scarred shoulder was healing under Leah's care, but her instincts hadn't dulled. Every creak from outside, every change in scent, she registered with laser focus. Comet, Maple, Scout, stay in formation, Ollie declared, pointing to the puppies nestled under an overturned laundry basket. They yipped playfully, each wearing a colored ribbon Leah had tied around their necks, red for Comet, gold for Maple, and blue for Scout. Scout had proven the most independent, already showing signs of becoming as sharp-eyed as her mother. Ollie, crouched near a loose floor tile in the storage room, leaned in to grab a toy soldier that had fallen through the crack. His small hand brushed against something cold, metal, not part of the flooring. "Mom!" he shouted, startled and excited. "There's something under here." Leah arrived moments later, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What is it, baby?" Ollie pointed. "It's stuck under the floor. I think it's a box." Leah knelt beside him. With a small crowbar from Ben's toolbox, she gently pried up the tile. Beneath it, buried just beneath a layer of dust and insulation, was a steel box about the size of a book. The top was scratched and dented, but one thing was unmistakable. It bore a faded military insignia. Ben joined them, brows furrowed. "That's not ours." Carefully he popped the latch. Inside lay two objects, a worn dog tag attached to a fraying chain, and a USB drive taped to a laminated note. Leah read the dog tag aloud. Callum Stray, U.S. Army K-9 Division, blood type O+. Avery, who had just walked in holding 2 coffees, froze mid-step. "What did you say?" she asked, eyes wide. Ben handed her the tag. She held it like a relic. "It's his," she whispered. "This proves he was here." Ben turned to the USB. "Let's see what's on it." They gathered in the study, Rhea padding in behind them like a silent shadow. Ben inserted the drive into his laptop. The screen blinked, a password prompt. He frowned. Encrypted, not just password protected. Triple-layer encryption. This is serious. Avery, still holding Callum's tag, whispered, "Try Echo 13 Delta." That was the name of his unit. Ben typed. The screen flickered. Success. The folders opened. Videos, logs, inventory files. He clicked on a document titled Op. Sentinel-Shadow-41. Lines of data spilled out. Shipment routes, coded communications, transaction logs linking Sentinel Black to arms dealers operating out of Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. Even worse, the logs hinted at deals made with rogue elements inside U.S. borders. clean contracts that involved black market weapons funneled through fake NGOs. Avery's face went pale. He was tracking this. No wonder they went after him. Leah leaned over the screen. This could destroy them. Ben shook his head. It could also destroy us if we're not careful. Meanwhile, out in the backyard, Rhea was moving again. She'd been restless all morning, tail up, nose pressed low to the ground. She circled the edge of the lawn, stopping near a section where the grass grew thinner, closer to the old maple tree that marked the property line. She began to paw at the earth, her digging methodical and precise, not playful like her pup's chaotic scrabbling. Leah watched from the window, then stepped out. "Rhea?" she called. The German Shepherd looked back, eyes alert. Her paw struck something, a rusted length of chain, mostly buried. Beside it was a patch of disturbed soil, softer than the rest. Leah crouched, brushing dirt away. No bones, no blood. Just a small, discarded military-grade tracking beacon, long deactivated. "What are you trying to tell me?" she whispered. Back inside, Avery stared at the folder of files. She pulled out her phone and snapped a few pictures, then paused, her thumb hovering over the send button. "No," she said aloud. "Not yet." Ben glanced up. "What?" "I have a contact in Boston, an ex-Intel analyst. But if I send this, we lose control. We don't know who's clean." Leah re-entered, shaking dirt from her hands. "Rhea's digging up more than we are." She found a signal device. Military issue. Buried deep, near the tree line. Avery nodded slowly. Callum must have taught her to remember. To come back here if he didn't return. Ben leaned back in his chair. "Which means this place was a fallback. A safe house. And we just activated it." Ollie suddenly ran in, clutching his stuffed bear, cheeks flushed. "There's someone in the backyard." Everyone froze. Ben rushed to the window. No one. Then the motion sensor beeped. On the screen, a figure appeared again. Same height, same hoodie. This time, standing still, staring directly into the rear camera. A gloved hand raised and pointed at the house. Then they turned and vanished. Ben bolted for the back door, but found nothing except Rhea, standing in the same place, growling, her body perfectly still. Later that night, as the house settled into uneasy silence, Avery sat on the porch, knees pulled up to her chest, eyes scanning the darkness. Rhea lay beside her, breathing slow but awake. Avery whispered, "You remembered, didn't you? He taught you to come home." Rhea didn't move, but in the stillness of the night, with the USB hidden inside a cookie jar, and 3 puppies curled around Ollie's legs upstairs, Avery knew the truth. The dog had come back not just to warn them. She had come back to finish what Callum started. The morning came heavy with tension. A dense fog rolled down the hills, curling between the trees like silent breath. At the Cunningham house, the light filtering through the curtains felt colder than usual, as if even the sun were unsure of what the day would bring. Leah stood by the kitchen counter, stirring oatmeal absently, her mind replaying the events of the past 48 hours. Rhea's scar, the hidden box, the USB with its encrypted secrets, the hooded figure outside. She glanced toward the back door where Rhea sat again, head high, eyes sharp. The German Shepherd had barely rested, always watching, waiting. She wasn't a guest in the house anymore. She was its guardian. Ben entered, phone to his ear, whispering into it. "Yes, I've updated the firewall, rerouted the cams. We're covered. But if they breach again, I want to know who's logging in." A pause. "No, I don't trust local authorities with this." Across the room, Ollie played with the puppies. Comet chewing a soft rubber bone, Maple pawing at a squeaky ball, and Scout trying to push open the screen door with her tiny nose. Rhea had begun training them unconsciously. Corrections in posture, low warning grunts when they misbehaved. Even in play, she remained the silent drill sergeant. The doorbell rang. Leah exchanged a glance with Ben. He motioned toward the hallway, already moving. At the door stood a man in a windbreaker embroidered with a local shelter's logo. He was in his mid-40s, tall and slender, with a close-shaved beard and cropped hair graying at the temples. His jeans were clean but weather-faded, and he carried a clipboard tucked under one arm. His boots were heavy-duty, the kind worn by ranchers or rangers, not the casual soft soles of suburban visitors. "Morning," he said with a toothy smile that felt just a little too polished. "Warren Deeks, I'm with Ridgeview Animal Services. We received a report about a German Shepherd and pups wandering near this address. Figured I'd check if you might be housing a missing dog. Ben stood in the doorway, unmoved. And you're just going door to door in case a military-trained shepherd wandered into a cul-de-sac? Deeks chuckled, friendly and easy. Actually, the microchip database flagged a potential match. We've had a few dogs go missing from a site just outside county lines. Could be nothing, could be one of ours. Behind Ben, Rhea appeared. She didn't bark. She growled. A low, guttural sound that started deep in her chest and vibrated through the air like a storm rolling in. Her ears flattened, teeth bared, body tensed like a drawn bowstring. It was more than warning. It was recognition. Deeks took one step back instinctively. Ben narrowed his eyes. She doesn't like you. Dogs get defensive in new environments, Deeks replied quickly. She's probably just nervous. Mind if I scan her for a chip? No. Leah stepped forward now, her voice colder. Not without a warrant, and not with her like that. Deeks hesitated, then gave a tight smile. Of course, just trying to help. If you change your mind, here's my card. He extended it and Ben took it, never breaking eye contact. Thanks, we'll be in touch. As soon as the door closed, Rhea growled again and padded to the window, eyes scanning the front yard. Leah looked at Ben. He's not with the shelter. Nope, Ben replied, flipping the card in his hand. Fake number, no website. The logo's from a shelter that shut down 2 years ago. Across the street, parked near the end of the block, Deeks sat in his SUV for nearly 10 minutes before finally pulling away. Meanwhile, in a grove at the edge of the forest, Marcus Dean crouched behind a patch of brambles, watching through a pair of military-grade binoculars. Dressed in a faded camo jacket and worn jeans, Marcus looked like a retired hunter, but moved like someone who hadn't forgotten the shape of shadows. His face, usually unreadable, now showed a flicker of something rarer, recognition. He had followed Deeks from the Cunningham house, keeping 2 car lengths back as the man took winding roads through the pinewood outskirts of Evergreen Ridge. The SUV eventually turned down a barely visible dirt road and disappeared behind a veil of trees. Marcus parked a quarter-mile away and went the rest of the way on foot. And now, he was watching Deeks step out of the SUV and approach a rundown cabin. The structure looked abandoned at first glance, roof sagging, shutters hanging loose. But a closer inspection revealed freshly raked earth and faint tire tracks leading to the back. 2 men stood at the rear, armed, dressed in civilian clothes, but wearing tactical boots and earpieces. Guards. Marcus took a quick shot with his phone, then another. He zoomed in on the number stenciled on a rusted shipping container beside the cabin. SBX-13. He breathed out slowly. Sentinel Black had been here. The cabin matched a location from Callum's last field report, one Avery had uncovered weeks ago, but couldn't verify until now. Marcus turned and disappeared back into the woods. That night, Avery sat on the edge of Leah's porch steps, flipping through Marcus's photos on her phone. She looked pale beneath the porch light, eyes moving fast, mouth tight. I recognize the symbol on that crate, she said, passing the phone to Ben. SBX-13 was a weapons route. Illegal transfers routed through ghost facilities. That cabin was listed as a training base, but Callum told me, off record, it was where they dumped unwanted assets. Leah joined them, cradling a mug of tea. Unwanted? Whistleblowers, failed missions, dogs they couldn't repurpose, sometimes even people. Rhea lay beside them, her gaze fixed on the shadows stretching across the lawn. At the mention of the word training, her ears flicked, her body shifted. Just a twitch, but enough to confirm it. She's been there, Avery whispered. Ben looked at the card from Deeks again, then back at the fading photo of the cabin. So he wasn't trying to rescue her, Ben said. He was trying to retrieve her. No, Avery said. He was trying to erase her. Inside, Ollie knelt beside Comet and Scout, whispering his latest imaginary plan to protect the house, unaware of the weight pressing down on the adults outside. And in the woods, under the cloak of night, Warren Deeks made a phone call from a secure line, voice low, words clipped. She's there. So is the data. Pause. No, not yet. The dog's on edge. Too risky to breach now. Another pause. Understood. I'll wait for your signal. Then he hung up, slid the phone into his pocket, and walked back inside the cabin, where Sentinel's forgotten ghosts still waited for silence. The morning mist hung low across Evergreen Ridge, like a veil draped gently over the forest's shoulders. The sun hadn't fully broken through, casting long silver threads between the branches. At the Cunningham house, tension buzzed just beneath the surface, like something was about to shift. Rhea was restless. She paced the length of the yard, stopping at the gate, nose pointed toward the dense woods behind the neighborhood. Her ears twitched with every sound, her body vibrating with anticipation. When she saw Ollie step outside, still in his dinosaur pajamas and boots far too big for him, she trotted over and nudged his leg with a soft whine. "Mom!" Ollie called, waving one arm dramatically. "Rhea wants to go." Leah emerged with her coat halfway on, her hair tied up in a quick knot. She squinted toward the trees. "She's been like this since sunrise." Ben appeared next, carrying a travel mug and yawning. "She wouldn't come in all night, kept watching the forest." Rhea barked once, not sharp but urgent. She looked at the family, then to the woods, then back again. "She wants us to follow," Ollie said matter-of-factly. Leah knelt beside Rhea, meeting her eyes. "Is something out there?" Rhea turned and took 3 steps toward the trees, then paused, looked back. Ben hesitated. "We can't just walk into the woods on a hunch." But Rhea took another few paces, then stopped. Ollie stepped closer. "Please, Dad. I think she remembers something." Ben and Leah exchanged a long glance, one heavy with everything they'd experienced lately. Leah gave a slow nod. "Let's go, but we keep close." With Ollie leading beside Rhea, the family entered the trees, their boots crunching over fallen leaves and damp pine needles. The air grew thicker, the canopy above filtering light into shifting greens and grays. Rhea moved like she was retracing memories, stopping occasionally, sniffing the base of trees, following turns like someone returning to a locked-away place in their mind. It took nearly 20 minutes before they reached it. A weathered cabin stood half swallowed by vines and moss. The front porch sagged inward, and a rusted lantern still hung from a nail by the door. Time had stripped most of its paint, but the wood underneath stood strong. Rhea stopped at the porch, her tail stiff, and turned in a slow circle as if guarding them from all sides. Ollie stepped forward, pushing open the creaking door. The air inside was stale with mold and silence. Furniture was overturned, dust-coated. On the floorboards near the far wall, Rhea began to scratch. Ben joined her, brushing away loose boards. Beneath them was a patch of dirt oddly smooth, recently disturbed. Rhea started digging. They found it. A strip of olive fabric, faded, torn, still carrying the faint scent of sweat and earth. Leah lifted it gently, brushing away soil. Stamped faintly on the inside collar was a name and 4 words. Callum Stray, Rhea, Final Mission. Leah's hand trembled. "He left this for her." Ben looked at the floor around them. "There's something more." They spread out, searching. In the corner beneath a collapsed shelf, Ollie tapped his boot against something hard. "Dad!" Ben rushed over. Together they pulled away the debris to reveal a metal hatch embedded in the floor, covered in rust, but unmistakably a sealed entryway. "No handle," Ben murmured. "It's locked from the inside." Leah looked at Rhea. She knew. She remembered. Meanwhile in town, Avery climbed the back steps of Marcus Dean's house for the 2nd time that week. He answered wearing the same camo jacket, this time with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. "Back so soon?" "We found it," Avery said. "The cabin, the hatch, and proof Callum made it that far." Marcus's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the doorframe. "I need your help opening that hatch," she added. "You said you had old Sentinel override codes. If he's alive—" "If," Marcus repeated. "That hatch was built to keep people out. Or in." He left a message for his dog. He planned for her to find him. That means he expected someone to help. Marcus studied her, then gave a slow nod. "I'll get my tools." Back at the Cunningham house, Ben worked quietly in his study, sifting through captured security feeds from the cabin. He had rerouted the trail cams Avery left behind, hoping to find a pattern. One feed caught his attention, a narrow view beneath the cabin's foundation. At the edge of the frame, barely lit by infrared, was a hand. A human hand, shaking, weak, and next to it, a blinking red light from a transmitter collar. Ben stared, frozen. He called Leah and Avery into the room. Rewinding the clip, he paused on the moment when the figure leaned against the hatch wall. A gaunt face, eyes barely open. Bruised, but alive. "It's him," Avery whispered. Leah leaned forward. He's still in there. They turned to Rhea, who sat in the hallway just outside the door, watching them. Ben whispered, "She didn't just remember her handler, she brought us his final request." That night, as wind crept through the trees and the stars blinked silently over Evergreen Ridge, the family sat around the dinner table in hushed conversation. Rhea lay curled beneath Ollie's chair, and the puppies snored softly in their basket. And outside, in the forest, Marcus Dean packed his gear, checked the battery on his portable scanner, and looked toward the trees. Tomorrow, they would open the hatch. Tomorrow, they might uncover the secret sentinel buried alive. The night fell quietly over Evergreen Ridge, too quietly. Even the usual rustle of raccoons and owl calls seemed to pause, holding breath. A full moon hung like a silent witness over the treetops, casting silver shadows across the Cunningham backyard. Inside the house, tension coiled like a spring. Ben had finished rewiring the security grid 2 hours ago. Every camera now fed into a hidden screen in the pantry, shielded, encrypted, undetectable to external interference. Leah stood in the hallway, flashlight in one hand, a small tranquilizer kit in the other. She hadn't touched veterinary tools in years, but tonight, instinct had kicked back in with haunting familiarity. In the living room, Ollie dozed on the couch, wrapped in his favorite dinosaur blanket, Scout curled up protectively at his feet. Rhea sat a few feet away, her body alert but still, ears trained on the window, nose twitching with every shift of the wind. Her injured leg, bandaged from the forest scrape, barely slowed her. She hadn't left Ollie's side since they had returned from the cabin. Marcus crouched near the garage, adjusting a small pressure sensor beneath the flower bed. The ex-mercenary wore a dark fleece jacket, gloves, and a rugged headset. He moved like a shadow, careful not to disturb the gravel. Under his jacket, the edge of a concealed handgun glinted in the porch light. His years in Sentinel Black had taught him 2 things. Never underestimate your enemy, and never let guilt stop you from doing what's right now. Avery sat beside Leah at the dining table, speaking quietly into a secure line. "Yes, we have confirmation on subject identity. Name, Warren Deeks, former Sentinel Field Retrieval, operating under false credentials. We believe he's tied to the illegal detainment of Callum Stray. Coordinates transmitted." The voice on the other end confirmed FBI and local backup were 30 minutes out. But 30 minutes would be too long. At exactly 11:06 p.m., the motion light above the back fence flickered, then died. Ben looked at the monitor. Zone 3, blind. Leah turned off the hallway lights. "He's here." The camera feed warped briefly, just long enough to obscure one figure slipping past the back hedge. Tall, deliberate, Deeks. He wasn't dressed like last time. Now, he wore black tactical gear, face smeared with ash-gray paint. He carried a tranquilizer rifle slung over one shoulder and a silenced pistol holstered tight at his waist. This wasn't a bluff. He wasn't knocking this time. As he reached the back porch, he paused, scanning the windows. Then he stepped forward, but Marcus was already moving. The sensor beneath the flower bed tripped. A soft electronic chime rang through Ben's phone. "He's in!" Marcus lunged from the side of the garage just as Deeks reached the screen door. A scuffle erupted. Quick, brutal. Fists and elbows, the scrape of boots against concrete. Deeks struck Marcus in the ribs with the butt of his rifle and forced his way past him, slipping inside through the unlocked mudroom door. Inside, the house lights cut on. Rhea snarled. From the hallway, Leah shouted, "Ollie, down!" Deeks raised his gun toward the living room. Then time slowed. Rhea launched forward, not barking, not growling. She moved like she had trained for this moment 100 times. Her body cut through the air in a clean arc, intercepting Deeks just as he squeezed the trigger. The bullet hit the doorframe. Ollie dove behind the couch. Rhea collided with Deeks' torso, driving him back into the wall. He swung the butt of the gun downward, striking her leg. She yelped, momentarily stunned, but didn't back down. Ben tackled him next, knocking the weapon aside. Then came a second shot, from the side window. A tranquilizer dart grazed Ben's shoulder. Leah screamed, but Rhea was already moving again, limping, bleeding, and furious. She lunged at Deeks' arm as he reached for the pistol, her teeth locked down, dragging his hand away. He screamed, trying to shake her off, but she held, jaw like steel. In the chaos, Ollie had scrambled into the hallway, trying to reach his mom. Deeks saw him. He wrenched free and aimed again. And Rhea moved. She crossed the space in 2 broken steps, body shielding the boy. The second shot fired. This time, it struck. She fell. Ollie screamed, his small hands trembling as he reached for her. "Rhea!" Ben surged forward, slamming Deeks to the floor. Avery appeared behind him, wielding one of Marcus's batons with practiced aim, and cracked it against Deeks' temple. He went limp. Sirens howled in the distance. Leah was already at Rhea's side, hands pressing to her leg. Blood seeped through her fingers. "She's alive, but we need help now." Ollie knelt beside Rhea's face, tears sliding down his cheeks. She opened one eye, blinked slowly, and licked his hand. And then, from behind the chaos, Marcus stepped forward holding a thin folder. He had found it while checking Deeks' abandoned duffel, a file with scanned documents. On the top page, a military profile, half redacted. Subject, Rhea Shadow, breed, German Shepherd. Handler, Callum Stray. Status, classified, cognitive retention. Tier 3, final mission protocol embedded. Leah took the folder with trembling hands. "She's not a stray," Avery whispered. "She's a shadow unit dog. Long-term retention." She remembered everything, even the sacrifice training. Ben looked down at the dog that had saved his son. "She didn't just come to us for safety. She came," Marcus said softly, "to deliver her handler's final message." The room quieted. Rhea lay still, her breath shallow but steady. The boy pressed his forehead to hers. And as red and blue lights flashed through the windows, signaling backup had arrived, the family that had once questioned whether to even open their door now knelt beside the guardian who had opened their hearts. Not just a dog, a soldier, and tonight, a hero. The dawn over Evergreen Ridge was not just a beginning, but a quiet reckoning. The forest that once hid secrets now shimmered with morning dew and the promise of redemption. Birds sang a little louder, wind carried a little warmer, and beneath the sunlight-streaked sky, a man emerged from the ground like a memory long buried, blinking against the light. Callum Stray was found inside the underground hatch, a gaunt shadow of the soldier he once was, but alive. His beard had grown wild and gray, skin pale and bruised from weeks, possibly months, of detainment. His military uniform hung loosely over a starved frame, but his eyes still held the fire of someone who had never stopped believing someone would come. He stumbled as he rose from the makeshift cot where he'd been kept, squinting at the silhouette standing at the hatch's edge. Marcus with his jaw set, Avery with tears already falling, Leah covering her mouth in disbelief, Ben steadying her with one hand. But it was Ollie who stepped forward first, holding tightly to a leash, one end looped gently around the neck of the injured German Shepherd. Rhea. Callum's gaze locked with hers. She stood still, tail low, wounded leg favoring slightly, but ears alert. Body braced not as a pet, but as a soldier reporting in. "Rhea," Callum whispered, voice raw with wear. "You made it." She padded forward, slowly, gently. Callum dropped to his knees, arms opening not wide, but low, like he'd practiced 1,000 times with her. She stepped into them, nuzzling her muzzle against his neck. For a moment, everything fell away. The war, the betrayals, the dark hatch. All that remained was the final tether of loyalty. He pulled back just enough to press his forehead against hers. "Tot lamb Kobe," he murmured. And then something shifted. Rhea turned, looked not at the others, not even at the man who trained her, but toward the boy standing just behind him. Ollie took a timid step forward. She moved past Callum, slow but sure, until her snout rested gently against Ollie's shoulder. The boy smiled, eyes wide, lips trembling. Callum watched them for a long second, a quiet grin breaking through the exhaustion. She chose right. From that moment on, there was no question. Rhea would stay with the Cunningham family. Not as a mission, not as a rescued dog, but as family. 2 days later, Callum sat in a small hospital room at St. Andrews, IV drip running into his arm, color slowly returning to his cheeks. Avery sat beside him, notepad closed, eyes softer than they had been in years. She looked like him. Same strong nose, same tired eyes, but there was youth in her face, hope that hadn't yet been crushed by war. "You left a trail," she said. "The jacket, the data drive, even Rhea." "I had to," he said. Sentinel thought they erased everything, but I knew Rhea would remember. I trained her for fallback. And you trained her to choose a house? He chuckled. Trained her to choose a home. Avery reached across the bed and gripped his hand. We'll bring the rest of them down. You've done enough. She meant it. Already she had accepted the role of lead witness in the unfolding investigation into Sentinel Black. Her articles, once scattered on fringe blogs, had gone viral in veteran forums. With Marcus's help, she was building a timeline, names, coordinates, contracts, an entire network of buried corruption clawing its way to light. Meanwhile, Leah unlocked the door to the town's abandoned veterinary clinic for the first time in years. The scent of dust and linoleum hit her instantly. She ran her fingers along the counters, memories flooding back, not of the case that broke her spirit, but of the lives she once helped. Now, she wasn't alone. Rhea stood beside her, bandaged but proud, watching every step Leah took. You're not just a hero, Leah said softly, brushing her hand over Rhea's head. You're a healer now, too. With Ben's help, she scrubbed the walls, restocked the shelves, and hung a new sign on the door. Evergreen Animal Healing Center, with companion specialist, Rhea. The ribbon cutting was small, just a few neighbors, a couple of grateful clients from before, and Marcus, who arrived with a car crate holding Comet, Maple, and Scout. I figured, he said sheepishly, they need someone who knows a thing or two about ghosts and second chances. He wasn't wrong. Marcus had changed. The man who once walked in shadows now spent his mornings training puppies, and his nights sending anonymous tips to the FBI through Avery's encrypted line. He didn't need redemption, but he was building something close. As for Rhea, her name made headlines, not just in Evergreen Ridge, but in military circles, in national K-9 divisions, and eventually, in Congress. A formal letter from the Department of Defense arrived by courier 1 week after Deeks' arrest. To Rhea Shadow. Designation, Military K-9 Unit Classified Operation Echo Sentinel. Status, mission completed. Recognition. For exceptional memory retention, unwavering loyalty, and successful execution of autonomous recon under hostile conditions, Rhea Shadow is hereby honored as a Special Service K-9. There was no ceremony, no podium, just a plaque delivered in a velvet box and a note handwritten by Callum. Some soldiers follow orders, some rewrite the mission. You did both. One quiet evening, as the sunset dipped low behind the hills and Ollie curled on the porch with a book, Rhea climbed beside him and rested her head in his lap. Did you know you saved everyone? He whispered, fingers brushing through her fur. She blinked up at him, tail thumping once. And in that moment, beneath the fading sky, beside the boy she chose, Rhea didn't feel like a hero. She felt like home. Sometimes, the ones who save us don't come with words, but with loyalty, scars, and silent courage. Rhea wasn't just a dog. She was a messenger, a protector, a reminder that even in the darkest night, someone will always fight to bring the light back in. In our own lives, we often overlook the quiet signs, small gestures, silent sacrifices, or those who stay by our side without asking for anything in return. May we learn to see them, to honor them, and, like Ollie, to open the door when hope knocks. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who believes in second chances. Leave a comment to bless the loyalty of animals and the kindness of strangers. Subscribe for more stories that shine light into forgotten corners of the world. And if you believe in miracles, type amen in the comments. May God bless every soul who watches this.